Hello everyone and welcome to Lick Library. My name is Lee Fuge, and in this video today we're going to talk about the 5 most hated guitar riffs to learn. Now I'm going to preface that by saying these riffs aren't hated in the literal sense of the word. These are actually riffs that are great riffs, and the people that have suggested these riffs to me all really love these riffs. So the whole point of this is to talk about riffs that you really love but that drove you absolutely crazy when you tried to learn them. So I reached out to a bunch of people across my social media platforms and asked them that simple question. What riffs do you love, but you hated the process of learning? In this video, we're going to talk about 5 of those riffs. Each of these riffs does have its own unique challenges. Perhaps if you've learned some of these riffs yourself, or you have your own riffs that drove you crazy while you were learning the guitar, you can share those down below in the comments as well. So we've got riffs from Aerosmith, Metallica, Stevie Ray Vaughan, Vulfpeck, and Led Zeppelin. So it's quite a varied bunch here in this video. If you want to fast forward to any one of these particular riffs, you can scroll down to the description below and hit the timestamp and it'll take you straight to that riff. Alright, so we're going to kick this off with a great suggestion and also a riff that did drive me crazy when I first learned it as well. It's the verse riff from the Aerosmith track Walk This Way. The riff goes like this. So this riff kind of sits in a typical 12-bar blues kind of shuffle pattern. So if you imagine we're playing that typical 12-bar thing, that's the kind of shape we're working with here. We're kind of centered around this C power chord, but we're picking all the notes. Now, I actually did a position shift on this. It's actually possible to play this without a position shift, but this is one of the things that drove me crazy when I first learned this riff, is I couldn't play it without doing the position shift. So that's kind of ingrained in my muscle memory. So this riff is made up of that kind of shuffle pattern, but with all the notes separated and picked. So we're starting off with this power chord shape, and then we're playing that kind of extension like a 12-bar, back to that C root note. So that's one of the things that makes this difficult, is we're working with quite a big stretch there. Now where the position shift comes in for me is we're going to the 10th fret on the D string for that phrase. Now I always find it easy to do that position shift, but understandably if you're playing this within the 12-bar phrase, it can be quite difficult because you need to do this. Now while that looks easier, to my hands and my muscle memory that feels slightly harder, but this is definitely one of those riffs that is going to push you and challenge you. There's a big stretch going on there because we're actually going up even further to the 13. So there's plenty of challenges in that riff. That's definitely a cool one to learn if you haven't already learned it, and maybe it'll drive you crazy as well. The second riff we're going to talk about, and this is another one that was heavily requested when I put the posts out, was anything from Master of Puppets. Now Master of Puppets, if you've already tried to learn this, you'll know, is an absolute riff workout. So I've gone for the obvious riff here because this is usually the one that drives people crazy. This is the riff that's kind of the chromatic spider riff at the start of the song, which sounds like this. Now this riff has a few different sections. As you already know, this riff kind of moves and twists as that section goes on. That was just the first couple of bars of that riff. Now, one reason this is difficult is Master of Puppets is a fast song. It clocks in at over 200 BPM, and if we're really trying to be faithful to how Hetfield plays this, we're going to need to play that with all downstrokes. Now, that was one thing that drove me crazy when I personally learned this, was the ability to downpick that fast. And admittedly, I still don't downpick this fully. I actually add the odd upstroke just to make my life a little bit easier. So on the surface, it looks kind of easy because we're not actually playing that many notes. So we're always playing the opening 1, and then we're adding one of those chromatic notes. So we're going 2, 3, 4, 3, 2. We're kind of going up and back down. Hitting a double on the final 2. And then there's that sliding power chord phrase. Now, if you've never slid a power chord before, that can be difficult because you have to play the power chord and move it, but you have to really avoid the temptation to be too loose because this will happen and you'll lose the note. And if you're too tense for the power chord, you can drag the chord and bend it out of tune. So sliding an entire chord is quite tricky at first. You have to get the pressure balance just right. This is a great riff for your picking workout and your hand workout. So learn that one, start slow and enjoy that one. If you haven't already learned that one, that's guaranteed to drive you a little bit crazy. Alright, so the third riff is going to be something a little bit more funky now. A bunch of people reached out and asked for something by Vulfpeck, and one song that came up more than once was the track Back Pocket. So we're going to check out the intro funk groove from the Vulfpeck song Back Pocket, and it goes like this. So fretting hand wise, this is quite a simple riff. We're not doing a huge amount here. We're playing a C major triad on the G, B and E strings, a G major, an A minor, a B flat minor, and a B minor. So pretty simple chords, all 3-string triads. Our picking hand is doing a funk rhythm all the way through, which is more or less straight 16th notes. There's a couple of natural breaks in the rhythm as well. But what makes this riff really difficult is the fact that usually in a funk song, we are kind of holding down our groove with a constant rhythm. So let's say we're just doing this. Your hand kind of gets into a natural flowing rhythm. This riff actually has a couple of single note phrases, some of which are paired with chords, and that kind of disrupts the flow of the strumming hand. So we're really used to just kind of locking in with a funk groove, but those single notes will really disrupt it. So the first one comes just after the G major chord. So we're breaking that funk rhythm to play that little lead lick almost. The same thing happens then when we go to the A minor chord. We're going between the A minor chord and the single 8th fret on the B string, which is then slid up to the 10. So it's chord, note, note, chord, and then the note with the slide. But there's also some mutes in between. So that's quite difficult because you're alternating there between hitting the full chord and a single string. Then we're going to the B flat minor, the B minor, and another one of those lead licks, and then we're back to the A minor again for that same pattern. Back to the C. So it's quite a tricky riff. I'll play that one through slowly so you can kind of see how my picking hand is disrupted by those single notes. Quite a tricky one to get into the groove of. Definitely one that will drive you crazy, but it's a great pick hand workout. The fourth riff that has been driving people crazy is the track Pride and Joy by Stevie Ray Vaughan. This Texas shuffle is quite hard to get to grips with. It's easy to learn, but it's really hard to nail the swagger and the kind of flow of Stevie's playing style. So this one is actually tuned down to E flat if you listen to the record, but I'm playing this in standard tuning today, and it sounds like this. So this riff is definitely one I certainly struggled with when I learned how to play this. On the surface, I thought it would be quite easy to learn, and apparently loads of other people thought the same thing, but when you actually dive into the nuances of this, that's where it becomes difficult. So what we're actually doing here is quite a simple thing. It's a 12-bar blues system, but we're doing like an ascending run. So basically, if we break it up into 2 parts, we're doing this. Which is just like an ascending scale run with a bit of a shuffle. But in between those notes, we're doing these upstrokes of muted strings. And this is where it gets difficult, because Stevie's shuffle style is almost very loose but very tight at the same time, which sounds like a bit of a juxtaposition there, but this is kind of what makes Stevie's style really unique and really hard to emulate. So you'll notice my hand was kind of going in a circular motion there. This is very similar to how Stevie would play this. So I'm kind of flicking the strings muted right before I need to hit the note. It's quite hard to do because we're not really playing it with a straight string there. It's a little bit more pushed. That's one of the things that makes this quite hard to do. So when you're combining those two elements, you get this. Coupled with the fact that we do actually go into a lead line later on in that as well. Makes this quite a tricky riff to learn. Try that one, but start slow. Learn the Stevie Ray Vaughan Blues Shuffle, but really take your time building that one up, get the groove right, and then go for the speed. Loads of people said that drove them crazy when they learned it, so it'll probably drive you crazy as well. The fifth and final riff that we're going to check out is Led Zeppelin's Black Dog, and I'm really glad this one came up on people's requests, because I remember when I first learned this riff, I had a really hard time with the turnaround, where the riff goes into a separate groove and then back into the riff. This really drove me crazy, and all I realised was I was missing one note. But that one note, which kind of feels out of place when you isolate the note, is really the key to making that groove work. So the riff sounds like this. So I mean, this riff is a finger twister. Whichever way you look at this riff, this is a tricky riff to play. Now, for me personally, the one thing that drove me crazy was transitioning from that second groove back into the main riff. Because there's one note that kind of switches the groove back around. Now, if you listen to the track, the main riff has a real kind of direct push to it, but then when it goes to that second groove, it feels a lot more laid back, and the transition from one to the other is quite difficult. So you've got that main riff, which I'll play slowly for you. Then it goes into the second groove. That D note right there at the end is the key note to nailing the transition back to the main riff, and that's the whole reason this is difficult, because that note almost feels like you're playing on the offbeat, because the natural thing to do would be to do this. Well, that's at least what our brain wants us to think, but actually there's one more note in there which ties it all together. When I was first learning that took me a long time to get my head round, and based on the amount of people that asked for that riff, I'm going to assume they also had the same difficulties. But what do you think? Have you already learned that one, and did that turnaround give you any trouble? Thank you all so much for watching this video on 5 riffs that you absolutely hated learning. Like I said, this is just a bit of fun. We don't actually hate these riffs. They're all great riffs that people have suggested, they really love, but learning them was a bit of a nightmare. Were there any riffs that you think should have been on this list? What riffs drove you crazy when you were learning the guitar? Let us know down below in the comments. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button for the Lick Library YouTube channel if you haven't already done so, because there's a ton more content just like this, and it's completely free. So enjoy it and learn from it and have fun with it. If you're ready to take your guitar playing to that next level, you can head over to licklibrary.com and sign up for the library of lessons over there. There's a huge amount of content that will take you from a beginner through to a seasoned pro. There's plenty of lessons there, from beginner stuff right through to more advanced concepts as well. Thank you so much for watching as always, and I'll see you guys very soon.